Here we go. Hello everyone. So we had a new major update for the plugin. It's a hair cars plugin for Maya, if you don't know. So let me just go straight to the point here. So let's go over new features, right? So we had some issues that I fixed in this update, and I actually added a bunch of new stuff here. So first of all, what bugs we had eliminated is we had this weird like a stack trace error when we started the Maya. Next time after we actually docked the window and closed Maya and we started it again, we had some weird issues with that. That's all fixed, nothing to worry about. And also a lot of optimization in this version. So let's go over the new features. I have a small list that we need to discuss. So first of all, installing and updating, right? So the first thing that you need to do is update if you already have this plugin. That's very easy. You just delete the old folder, the JS underscore CurveTools folder, and you just place the new one that I have provided. Then you go to the, let me just go to the desktop really quickly and show you some live stream. And you go over here, you would basically get this RAR file, or it will be zip, never mind. And you'll have this folder over here, and you just copy the entire folder, not the contents, the entire folder. And then you go to this README file, you go over here, the third step, and you copy this command over here and go to this Python field over here, just paste the command, and you have this welcome window. You have 3 new buttons and a new shelf over here, and the new 3 buttons. So this first one launches the menu, this resets, and this deletes the menu. Not deletes, it just closes it and stops everything that goes in the background. Great, so that's very easy. Updating, installing, that's not a problem if you already installed some scripts before. Let's go over the new features. So one of the major things is warp, mode, warp function. So those are connected, but they're not the same. We also have filters over here for the layers. We have extraction buttons over here that can extract only selected curves, or they can extract all the curves from your layers, with the exception of last layer, and I will explain why later. And also I've updated the transfer attributes and transfer UVs button. Now it will work in 2 directions. I will explain it a little bit later as well. And also the big overhaul is the curve control window. Now it's much more usable. I mean, it's pretty much great right now. So you'll see that controls will just appear when you select the curve, and it will actually know different types of curves, and it will just show you the controls that are available for those curves. So no problem here. And we also have some fixes over here that I will explain in the end. And that's it. This is the new update, some additional options. Let's just dive right into the new functions. So first of all, warp, right? So before this update, what you needed to do is to create a new like card, right? And just place it, and of course texture it and stuff. So the warp is the same functionality. It will create a card, but the big difference here, let me just create 2 cards right next to each other, so you will know the difference between them. We have 2 absolutely the same looking cards, but let's go at the curve control and let's explore some options, right? So this is the regular one, the old extrude, and this is the new one. So extrude, you remember that. Twisting, orientation. If you, by the way, if you have no idea what I'm talking about, there is a previous video on the version 1.0. This video is on my YouTube, so you can just check it out, and the link will be somewhere in in this video or in the description. So let's see. Twisting, width, and stuff like that. Tapering, very easy, very basic stuff. But let's go to the warp, right? So we have orientation, we have twisting, right? A regular one, but we have now this twist curve. So what it does is it allows you to control where to twist your curve, right? We increase the resolution, and now we have the new control, twist curve, right? And let's see. Look at this. So it actually can control curvature, I accidentally created a new point, on any point of the curve that you want. So this is extremely useful for long hair. I cannot explain enough how it's useful. I think you know if you made hair before. And you can actually add new points with no problem, and a lot of points over here. So any number of points, just go wild. Now let's see. Next thing, we have this M. This is magnitude. I should have probably named it better, but it's only one letter, so I mean, who cares? Just know that this is a magnitude. What magnitude does, it basically increases the effect of this graph, right? So let me just exaggerate a little bit. So let's just make a regular twist, just so you see. And now I'm holding Control and scrolling with my right mouse button. This is regular Maya stuff. And as you can see, it increases the magnitude of this graph. So I'm not touching this this twist, this regular one. I'm just increasing the magnitude of this graph, and just like that. And if you do something like this, for example, and increase the magnitude, as you can see, it only twists on these points over here, right? So this magnitude is great. By default is 0.5, but you can basically increase it to any value you want. And reset curve will just reset this curve to its regular, it's to the default positions and default number of points. So if you accidentally did something weird, just reset the curve and everything is great. Now, next thing, you might think that if you have long hair, you'll need this exact precision, right? So if you want to, let me just disable this. If you want to, for example, let's just go with this braid, right? And as you can see, it has the same graph over here, so it's great. And I want to rotate only the tip over here, right? So it's really hard to do this on this small graph right here, but what you can do is just increase this window, or even better, you can go ahead and pop out this graph like that and just do whatever you want. You can even go full screen if you just, or even put it on the second monitor. I don't know, just it just like a regular window over here, and you can just increase it. And let's go over here. As you can see, it mirrors the options. Let me just, and let's try to twist it. And as you can see, I'm twisting now only the tip. It's really hard to see, but I'm twisting only this part. So the amount of control you get is insane. You can just do everything, anything, I mean, with this graph. Let me just undo this. So that's great. Now we have precise control over twist. Now the same thing goes for width, right? Width gets the same graph. So now you can have custom profile for your curves. You can see, you can have custom profile for your curves like that, and basically do anything. And of course, adding new points, same thing. You can just pop out this graph like that. You can reset, and there is no magnitude for this thing because you already have magnitude, this width slider over here. So it will just magnify this width and apply the corrections using this graph like that. So you can magnify it and just go to a point, for example, right? So no need for magnitude here. Next thing, you can actually unlock length of your cards. You can unlock length. Let me just demonstrate it really quickly. So we have some random shape over here, right? And you can now length unlock. And what it will do, if I edit this point, it will not affect all of this other stuff. It will remain the constant length of the, based on this length slider. So this is extremely useful, and I will show you why. So for example, you have this braid, right? And what I did here is I placed this braid, placed it first, of course, like that. And after that, I started to add those like hair strands over here around it. And then after that, I thought, hey, I actually want to reposition this braid, right? So in order to reposition, you just take the curve and move it, right? But the problem here is that if you move the entire curve, right, like it was before, like this, it will actually change the shape of this braid over here, and it will break the sort of connections here that you have with this part. So when you unlock the length like that, it will no longer break, right? So you just choose the length that you need, and then you can actually change only the tip over here. You can change this part over here, and it will not break this already made hair strands right here. So length unlock is very useful, and of course you have all the previous options from the extrude, the regular extrude. So we have profile, you have right here, you have divisions, you have width divisions, you have orientation, you have twists, regular one. It works independently from twist curve, and regular UVs, regular solidify attribute right here. It will work just like before. So you can solidify, basically extrude, but it will extrude keeping all of the procedural stuff over here. So yeah, great. So that's new stuff. And as you can see, it basically mirrors the extrude option. So you have new card, new tube, and the same thing goes for new card, new tube, and curve cards. So for example, you want to add more warp cards. Well, there is a function. It was in the extrude, and the same goes here. You can add cards just like that. As you can see, it adds cards, it keeps the curvature, it tries to keep the orientation, it actually blends all of the settings over here. So yeah, as you can see, you can do the same option, the same functionality as before. And also you can convert curves, CurveTools. Let's see. Let's create some random curve over here and rebuild it because it's a little bit dense. And you can, of course, just convert this curve to a curve card. As you can see, it doesn't like when you have this pinching on the first few CVs. As you can see, same options, same twist. So fully functional, you can convert any number of curves. Select, convert, smooth a little bit because this part over here. So as you can see, same functionality, better options. It's a new warp mode. Just use it. Let's go to some more exciting stuff. One point last point about warp and extrude. Why I have two modes here? Because extrude is faster, a little bit, but it's faster than warp mode over here. So it's two completely different algorithms. So if you have issues with your performance, you shouldn't have any issues, by the way, if you have decent computer. But I mean, you can use either of those and you'll be fine. I mean, all of this hair was created exclusively in warp mode, no extrude at all, and it was perfectly fine. So I just kept it just in case something happens with the performance. Nothing should happen, by the way. All right, so warp mode, great. So you can now create all of this stuff. Let's go to some more exciting stuff. So those are templates for this hair over here. So as you can see, we have braid, we have all of the cards that I used for this thing, and this braid, by the way, using this over here. We have this clump of hair. We have another one, and I'm sure you'll see the resemblance. So what we can do with this? Well, we can actually control all of this, for example, with one curve very easily. Let's just go to front view so we can easily create a new curve. And let's just random shape. It doesn't need to be in the center of the world. It doesn't need to be like somewhere specific, just a random curve. I'll just rebuild it because pencil tool creates some crazy CVs. And let's select both of them. So as you can see, this is just curve tube. It's editable. It has all of the options over here. But what I can do right now, I can just click warp. And here we go. It's just but it's now bound to a curve, and you can just easily edit it. So let's go and explore some options. So this warp mode, it actually creates a new type of, the third type of curves, and they are called warp group over here in the outliner. So if you need to know that, I tend to not use outliner since I have those layers over here. So now those original curves are they disappeared and they are bound to this curve. So what we can do with this thing, right? Now, first of all, I want to flip the axis, right? Flip the orientation because it actually upside down. So I can just go to my curve control window over here and flip. Now everything seems to be fine. As you can see, it stretches just like the regular geometry, the regular curve cards and tubes. You can change orientation. You can change twist using this graph. You cannot change uniform twist, but if you really want to, you can just do something with this graph like that, and it will be basically uniform twist and just increase this magnitude over here. So you can control twist precisely. Same thing goes for width. You can just change width, just like that. And unlock length. Yes, we have unlock length for that. As I said, this braid was created using this method. And you can unlock it a little bit. And let's just, for example, put it like that. And as you can see, almost nothing changes over here. And you can actually move this tip over here. I mean, it will change a little bit. It's inevitable, but at least it will not change completely. So you can actually edit those original curves without a problem. Let me just hide this. See, let's hide this. There's a button here, edit original curves. And if you click on it, it will be temporarily unbound from this original curve. And if you go over here, unfortunately, it still, yeah. If you go over here, you will see that, let me just put those in this layer as well. You'll see that those curves are still there. They are intact, they are working, they are fully functional. And the cool part about this is look at this. I will just do something like this, just for demonstration purposes. I will go back and everything is there. Everything, all your edits are still here, so you can just unbind it again. You can go over here, change something. Or, as you can see, it has 3 curves, right? Well, you can originally bind any number of curves. So you can have, for example, this base, right? This base from tubes. And after that, you can put some details on the top, right? So like on the dreads or something like this, you can put some details on top. Also over here, some stray hair and stuff like that. And you can select everything, bind it to one curve, and you will still have the ability to edit it later. Just like that. As you can see, it's there. It will deform a little bit because, well, it's not like perfect, but those edits will be there. And the more you go from the central curve on the sides, the more you will see the deformation. But I mean, it's pretty much the same as it was when before I actually bound it. So that's new warp mode, and it actually works for geometry as well. So let me just demonstrate. For example, let's create a cylinder, right? Just a regular old cylinder with some height divisions. And let's just scale it a little bit, right? And we have this cylinder. And let's just create another curve. Like that. And just warp it. And of course, again, I accidentally selected the first layer. It's now hidden, so it will be hidden when I actually warp it. Let's just select this layer. It's empty right now. Great. Let's warp it. And we can see it because we have new layers, new layer. And now, as you can see, this cylinder is bound to this curve. And if you are using regular geometry, first thing you need to do is to combine to one mesh. So you just combine everything to one mesh and then bind. If you use curves, you can use any number of curves in any configuration. They will all bind to one curve that you select, the empty curve. Of course, you cannot select already like used curves. And not only for braids, right? You can actually use it for clumps of hair. For example, let's just use handy layer buttons over here and actually unhide everything. I already I've hidden this thing in the outliner. That's why I don't like to use outliner for this, because it actually confuses me a little bit when I use layers and outliner. So let's explore over here. Let me just find this curve. Here we go. I already found it. So here we have a part of this hair over here. And if you can notice, it actually has a bunch of curves attached, a bunch of geometry cards, I mean, attached to one curve. And it acts as one curve. You can twist it, just like you would twist one curve. You can edit original curves. It's by default, it goes to the middle of the world, so that's the compromise I had to make. You cannot edit it right here. It will go straight to this middle point. But don't worry, it's easy enough to edit them here. As you can see, I actually edit tips a little bit. I've edited those after the fact when I actually placed this curve over here. As you can see, you can just go over here and edit this part to whatever you want. I mean, obviously this is not great. And you can go back and it will transfer this edit here. Now it doesn't look exactly like it was before because I have width curve applied. Because I have this width curve applied, and that's why it looked differently. But you can, of course, just don't use this width and it will look the same way it looked over here. Maybe a little bit more. I mean the width, it's a little bit less, because by default I think it's 2. Great, so now you can have braids that actually attach to one curve. You can have clumps of hair that attach to one curve, and that drastically reduces the amount of curves and variables that you need to use to create hair, and this is great. But as you can see, I still have a lot of stray hairs over here. I mean, that's just all curves with pivot somewhere, reset pivot, right? So you cannot avoid it completely right now, but you can really reduce the amount of curves that you have on the first layer. So that's useful, I think, and those graphs are great. So now about layers. So I've added a bunch of layer gestures that we can use. So before that, you had to select everything in this layer and, for example, hold right click and add this to this layer, to this layer, to this layer, right? So it's a little bit annoying and a little bit hard to do. So right now you can just avoid selection. You can just hold middle mouse button and actually drag those curves to a new layer, just like that. So you can move between layers really easily. Now, if you want to merge two layers together, well, that's totally doable. You just hold this, for example, F layer, and go to this 6th layer, and they will be merged together into one layer, just like that. So that's new gestures that we have for the layers. Layer filters. Now, you already saw me using them. They are very useful because you can actually hide all the curves and show only geometry, and it's very useful for preview in the viewport, right? So as you can see, I have a lot of like curves and stuff that, well, I need them for control, but I don't like to see them when I actually want to see the hair. So I can just go to the geo, show only geo. As you can see, those casting some shadows here. So this will show only geometry. This layer will show only curves. So if you need to troubleshoot to find some weird curves like those over here, for example, right? You can, as you can see, they go through the head over here. You can go to curves and you can show all. So it will show everything. And also this new color mode. But first, as you can see, it doesn't show you the last layer. That's absolutely intentional because, as you saw, I used last layer for the templates. So I don't want to hide them every time I use those filters, right? So what you have in the options, you have last group filtering. And by default, it's ignore filter. So last group will ignore the filtering buttons over here. And you can, of course, just enable filtering, and last layer will be absolutely the same as all of those other layers. Now this color mode. Now it's a little bit hard to distinguish between layers. And by the way, since we are talking about distinguishing between layers, I have added a new button over here that actually shows you which layer you're on. So I will select this curve, right? And it will show me that, hey, it's on the 4th layer. And it's over here. You can change the layer of this curve to go to, let's go to layer 9, for example. As you can see, 9 is now lit up, and this curve is now in this 9th layer, and it was removed from the 4th layer. And same goes for like backwards. You can just go backwards. Let's explore this color menu. Now, as I already told you, it's a little bit hard sometimes to distinguish between layers, and maybe you want to check your UVs on your cards. So what you need to do is just click this color button, and as you can see, it will colorize all of the layers, and it will colorize the geometry. So now you can, well, not really easily, but you can actually see much better. I'm hiding the layers, by the way. As you can see much easier where and which layer is based on those colors. You can simply click on this layer and it will light up the curves, just like that. Or you can just enable color mode and see that A is this blue, right? Or whatever color this is. The same goes for other ones. And you can actually randomize those colors if you don't like them. And you can actually change the color of the entire layer over here. For example, let's just change it to something like this, right? So it will change the color of every layer that you select. We can select everything and change everything to white for some reason. And you can just click color back and it will return back your materials. So everything is perfectly fine. Great. By the way, you can go to options and disable the checker. Let's see, color. As you can see, it now has this like checker material. You can go disable this. You can go over here and you can just go and it will go and put a plain color without any checker materials or something like that. Now the extraction buttons. The extraction buttons are very useful because before, in order to extract something from the layer, from your hair, from your groom, let's just say that, you had to actually go over here and click the extract geometry. And as you can see, it extracts this geometry over here, just like that. Everything else stays the same. The original layer is hidden, but you had to do this for each and every layer. And you had to then select it and merge everything together. So that was really annoying. And I've added one button, extract all. The same thing that goes for the filters actually applies to extract all. So your last layer will not be affected. So extract all. It will take a little bit because there's a lot of geometry, and it will actually give you already merged geometry that you can easily export to Marmoset, for example, or to Unreal Engine. Let's just delete it. And as you can see, I've deleted the hair, but original hair is still there. It's just hidden. As you can see, gray color over here. You just click over here and everything is back as it was. Everything is editable and everything is great. Extract selected, it's the same thing as extract all. It will just extract the selected curves only. So I want to extract only those. I will extract them, and as you can see, here we go. And by the way, I forgot to tell you about extraction. So this small triangle here, it means that you can actually press Shift, and it will change the behavior a little bit. So let's go to Outliner and check it out. So regular extraction works like that. You can extract the geometry, and it will give you the extracted one mesh, right? But if you want to, for example, extract everything but keep everything separate, you can hold Shift and you can click on Extract. And as you can see, it gives you all of your layers, and in all of those layers, you will have all the separate geometries that were there from before. And as you can see right now, it's just regular geometry. It's editable. You can do whatever you want with it. You can export it. You can combine it. I'll just delete it and show all. As you can see, it's very fast right now. And the same goes for extract selected. It will give you separate mesh. That's it. If you press Shift. Great. Now transfer attributes. Now this thing is a very small feature, but I think it will be very useful. Let's just hide this. And by the way, as you can see, on all you have the same triangle. So normal click will show everything, and Shift click will hide everything, except for the last layer, of course. So now transferring. As you can see, I've added those triangles here as well. That means that if you want, you can reverse the direction of transfer. So before we had this thing, you selected two curves. Let's just transfer UVs, it's more visible. Transfer UVs, and it went from the first selected curve to all of the curves in next in the selection list, right? So now, if I select in the same order and I press Shift UVs, as you can see, it will transfer UVs from the last selection to everything else. So I can just go over here, select all of this thing, select this, and this will be my last selection. I press Shift, and I transfer everything from this point over here, because sometimes it's just not really easy to select the layer that the curve that you want to transfer from first. Now you can do this way, from last to everything else. Same goes for transfer attributes. Now pivot point. Before you could only reset pivot point to the origin of the curve, this square thingy, but now you can actually go ahead and click Shift and reset pivot point to the tip of the curve. That is actually very useful because you can just position your curve a little bit differently, especially for those combined curves. Over here, it's very useful. I actually used it a lot when I placed those things over here. As you can see, we have a bunch of curves over here, and I used this reset pivot point. For example, as you can see, pivot point is now here, and I can just reposition it from this point, because I want actually to this point to stay in this braid. Oh yeah, Maya 2020 UVs. So if you unfortunately used Maya 2020, this plugin is fully supported, by the way, but there is a bug in the Maya itself. So I cannot fix it because I'm not Autodesk, I cannot do that. But there is a bug that actually will do, that's my old project from my old, I think 2019 Maya. It will do this with your UVs. It will ignore all of the UV attributes that you have in 2020 if you try to transfer your project from 2019. But don't worry, there is a fix. It's actually very easy. You just open the plugin, options, fix old UVs, and everything magically is back. You can use Maya 2020 as your main Maya, but I don't really recommend you right now because it has some weird issues that I'm just sticking to 2019 for now. 2020, it's very, let's just say, not great right now, but you can use it if you really want to. Now we have new online documentation. So if everything that I say right now is not enough, you can always go to this link over here, and I will link it in the chat. You can go to this link over here, and you actually can go ahead and read installation, first steps, main menu, everything about the main menu with categories and with curve control window, with the structure of the curves, attributes. Some things are animated, so maybe you'll find this useful if you just can't understand what's going on. As you can see, basically everything that is relevant is animated. Textures, how to apply textures, how to use UV attributes, what UV attributes are doing. So everything is here. Just go ahead and read it. I think you'll find it very useful. Okay, great. Online documentation. And also, if you still not decided about this plugin and you want to purchase it, right? Please use my ArtStation website. It's the same ArtStation that you're used to. You just need to put your ArtStation email there, and you will get the purchase in your ArtStation library later on. But it actually gives me a little bit more of a revenue, so it will help me support the plugin in the future. Thank you. That's pretty much it for those plugins, for the new things. Everything, by the way, was rebuilt almost from scratch, so this version should be much faster than before. And those new features, I think you'll love them. By the way, you have help and open online documentation. It will actually open this documentation for you. So no need to scroll through PDFs. So in the next update, what I want to do is really get rid of those UV attributes, right? So if you watched the first video, you actually had to tweak those attributes a little bit to set up your UVs, and sometimes it was a little bit annoying. So what I wanted to do is a dedicated UV window, just like Maya UV editor. Well, of course, it will be much simpler, because why do I need all of those options here? But a dedicated window where you can just select the curve and drag like some controllers, and your UVs will be set. So that's one major thing in the next update. Also, I had some requests for mirroring of hair. So for example, you have, just disable this. For example, you have hair on this side, and you can just mirror it to this side. Or for example, like, I mean, hair is not really asymmetrical stuff, and you shouldn't do it in some kind of symmetry. But for the first layer, if you want to start the first layer, it will be very useful to just mirror, flip the hairs, and start from this. So it will duplicate and it will flip them to the other side. Okay, so this is it for this update. If you have any issues or questions or bugs to report, you can go straight to my Discord, or you can just contact me on ArtStation or via email. You should have it if you have the plugin. So yeah, thank you for watching. See you next time.